Our invocation, followed by the pledge.
Yes, sir. Let us bow. Heavenly Father, as once more again we come just to say thank you. And we now ask, Father, that you will be with us as we go through this meeting. We pray that all things that are discussed and decided upon will be found pleasing in your sight. We ask these and many other blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Now, can everyone see the flag?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag of the
of the
United
of the United
States
States of
of
America
America
and
and
to
to
the
the
and to the
republic
republic
republic for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice.
and justice for all.
That brings us to our next item on today's agenda. As you see, we have our agenda for today, and we'll do our review of Monday night's information as we get to that point. But I need a motion to adopt today's agenda.
So move.
Has been motioned by Ms. Cox.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Okay, being none, all in favor, please signify with a yes or no vote. Ms. Cox, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Shoemake, how do you vote?
David Dunn.
Is now joining.
Dr. Shoemake, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. And Ms. Young, how do you vote?
Yes.
It is unanimous. So next we go to the next item, which is discussion of reopening of the Columbus Municipal School District for school year 2020-2021. I know, board, that we have been brought a proposal that we approved regarding the restart and reopening. There's been several ongoing pieces of information with respect to the reopening that's coming up on August 6th. And so we put this on here as we're, a day before that. There's obviously been concerns across the community, and of course, that we've talked about, but just to hear from Dr. Labat and her team with respect to where they stand on all the different details that have been put forward. I know there's been different WonderWorks videos that have been circulated, Falcon Blast and other details, but if Dr. Labat, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here. I apologize.
No problem. So if you could possibly outline for us, some of the things that you see moving forward and any contingencies that might have to be addressed, then, certainly if you could just kind of relay that to the board and anyone else who's a part of the call.
I've spoke with Dr. Dobbs this week and been in constant communication with them. We've also met with our local state health official, Dr. Crystal Tate, and she met with the team. And so we've put in several mitigation strategies that Dr. Dobbs recommended for all school districts that we put in quite early on. I think the Columbus Municipal School District did a great job of listening to our community from a perspective of the survey that we put out in early June. About 60% of our about 50% of our parents wanted hybrid, and the other about 40% wanted virtual. Right now, that's about where we stand with the parent opting and making their selections. We're about 60% hybrid and about 40% virtual. Our right now, a hybrid schedule was the best solution for our community. Considering the number of African-American students that we have. We thought about that, and as we started to mitigate the situation, we felt the hybrid schedule would put fewer students in the classroom. Our pre-K through fifth grade will only have no more than 10 to 12 students, and some schools will have up to 8 students. 6 to 12 will have less than 15 students. per class, and there will be no more than 100 students
Unknown participant is now joining.
pre-K 5, and no more than 15 for 612. Other mitigation circumstances.
Excuse me. Would you slow down a little bit and repeat back from 6 through 12? This is Ivana Cox.
Okay,
How you doing, Dr. Labat?
How are you? Happy birthday, Miss Cox.
Thank you.
Oh,
So 612, no more than 15. We've had a mandatory face mask for employees and students when we started our process. We also have a no contact policy for all facilities, which means that parents can only pick up the child from the outside. They have to call and make an appointment to pick up their child. We have mandated social distancing. We've done regular sanitation and sanitize each building with the CDC required products that are necessary to kill the virus. We have safe sites, which is a sanitized CDC compliant computer lab with connectivity. We have limited mobility of students and teachers. The only places where they will move will be in the secondary schools, which is the middle school and high school. All teachers have face shields and masks.
Hold on one second, Dr. Labat. One question. So on the elementary side, obviously pre-K through 5th grade, so students will come to school on their designated day if they're on the hybrid, whether it's Group A or Group B, ever how it's set up. They'll come to school and they'll stay with those students from the time they arrive to the time they leave. There won't be any changing of classes of any kind.
No.
And as far as their lunches or anything along those lines, or if they need to go, restrooms, breaks and all those other things, outside activities, as far as, PE or anything, how is that handled on the elementary side?
At the elementary side, that's going to be very limited with our no contact policy. They will have some virtual electives on their virtual days on the hybrid schedule. So our elective teachers will be doing interactive videos and other activities with them, but that's going to be very limited because we're trying to reduce as much access and personal contact as possible. As things get better, we're praying it's phase 2 in January. If things are better, we may have to shift, but right now that's in the best interest of safety.
Okay.
So
go ahead, Ms. Cox.
So what you're saying is that the teachers will, in pre-K through 5, teachers will be with their students doing that. Is it basically a 4-hour day for the kids?
Yes, it's approximately 240 minutes, which is the requirement, processing of the requirement. Yes.
All right, doing those 240 minutes.
Correct.
And all right, so it'll be just that teacher. It won't be any teacher rotating in and out of the classroom?
Yes, ma'am. And the only place that will take place will be at the secondary level, and that'll be very limited.
Got it.
And the teachers will move at the secondary level.
So
all right, teachers will move.
Right. So students come out and change classes and lockers and everything else. It'll just be the teachers who'll move from one spot to the other.
At the middle school and at the high school, there will be some mobility, but there'll be staggered mobility with social distancing. So that means like if you're getting out and you had a 90-minute class, that class with social distancing get out, and then they'll allow the next class. Everybody won't be in the hallway at the same time. We also have a contract tracing form for all of our students and teachers, so we'll know where they are in the building just in case exposure does break out. We do have to follow HIPAA requirements. I know people want to know everything that's happening, but we have to be very mindful of what we do and how we tell people that have been exposed. So this is a process we've dealt with since March. I would just say that a lot of it's not new in how we've handled each situation. And we follow CDC guidance very early on, and because we prioritize the safety of our students and the people in our community.
Now, one thing I was just curious about is I listened to the governor's talk yesterday, and I know that he made some executive orders on specific counties with respect to their schools being delayed and everything. Is there something that Dr. Dobbs or other individuals in those committees have communicated that if cases in certain areas, I know they have a threshold as to when the governor basically decrees, hey, here you're going to have a countywide face mask mandate or something, but is there some criteria that they're using that say, okay, if you start school and then all of a sudden there's an outbreak that you've got to change to a new system. You got to go fully virtual, or you got to shut down, have those type of contingencies been discussed?
Yes, but he gave specific counties, the hot counties in which he
Right.
made the 712. The
Yeah.
other contingencies, I think the statewide mask ordinance was good. I want to commend the city of Columbus for their mask ordinance very early on, and the county has put their mask ordinance in. So you couple that with the state ordinance that we know that we've been about a weekend with the whole community should be mandated to wear mask both locally and from the state level.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Dr.
guess,
Labat, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead, Ms. Young.
This is Talisa Young. Can you go over how the students will eat? Will they eat in the cafeteria, or
Yes.
will they eat?
All of our students will eat in the classroom, and their food will be distributed. And it's got a sanitized cart. We did this very early on. We bought those things in April and May. And if you want some more detail, Ms. Johnson can give you some more detail. All of the processes of how we will implement school is in our recovery plan, which is at www.columbuscityschool /COVID-19. It details the scheduling process, the bus routes, what we'll do on the buses, food and nutritional safety, our mitigation strategy. It even details the cleaning and sanitation with an appendix in detail how we clean each classroom and the schedule we will clean each classroom.
Okay. And what about bathroom safety?
Bathroom safety. We do have a hand sanitizer in every restroom, and we have them about 10 to 20 feet apart throughout every hallway in the building. So every building is equipped with sanitation devices, hand sanitizer devices throughout the building. That was another one of our mitigating strategies to make sure our hands are sanitized. They'll be supervised.
So in essence, parents have been informed of these details that you're discussing.
Absolutely. And we understand that there's been some communication breakdown, and the district takes full responsibility for that. It's just been a new normal for us. I called the principal about a parent situation this morning. And I think because we're not able to have face-to-face meetings and convey information in person, that there's been a delay of getting information and a new way of getting information, because generally you would get this information in person. You would be able to come in a building and talk to somebody. You'd be able to say things to other people. So people having to get information on the internet, on Facebook, and through Falcon Blast, it's just been a little different for parents, and we understand those needs.
Okay.
Now-
My only concern is that I really want the parental communication to be fully transparent, for it to be open, so that all of our parents, regardless as to their level of education, that they fully understand our plans of action and all of the hard work that you've been doing, you and your team, through April.
And ma'am, I'd like to acknowledge that it has been difficult. I told my team, I called them and asked each one of my team members, do you have any reservations about opening? And they all told me no. We talked 2 or 3 months ago about what our plan was, and we started to work the plan. But we've made sure our environment is as well as it could be as far as providing safety.
Yeah.
Our teachers have face shields and masks. Thanks to this great community, we had a church in the community to make a cloth mask for every single student in the district. They made 3,500 masks for our children and even sized them down for the pre-K kids. So it's been a great community effort. With the art supplies, the city of Columbus has really been behind Columbus Municipal School District, and we couldn't be more appreciative to what has been done to help prepare us for tomorrow.
Okay.
Now, the last couple questions that I have, one is when you get into the high school area of things, you have students who drive to school that don't necessarily ride the bus. And so, is there a different protocol for them entering the building, or anything different with them coming to school that way, coming together? Maybe, they pick up a friend or two, or they have multiple siblings that come to school together in one vehicle. Is there anything that should be related regarding policy or procedure in that scenario?
I just want to, all students will have a temperature check before going to the building, and we have quarantine rooms if they have a fever. But the high school has mitigated this situation by having a place where car drivers, a different entrance for bus riders and car riders. That with the 5 questions, the screening with the 5 questions, have you been exposed? And then they enter through different entrances. The great thing, one thing we did at the middle school is we even have a scan code before you go in the building with the 5 questions before your temperature is taken. So temperatures will be taken of every single student and every single employee every single day.
Okay. And I know it's not necessarily much for elementary and possibly middle school, but at the high school with respect to, tardiness, moving, since there's going to be this staggered release and other things, how is that going to be handled if, is that the policy that governs tardiness between transitions and things now not going to really be applicable, or is there going to be some type of variation as to how it is assessed, when you arrive in the morning or, getting to your class or during the day? How is that addressed?
The Carnegie units from 9-12, or any student that's earned a Carnegie unit, it's mastery of content. Even though we've assigned minutes for students, we have some flexibility according to the accountability standards. And so we have some flexibility as far as minutes and time, but they will be supervised in between periods. If you look at the rules and suspensions for the executive order for the process standards, it'll give you the details, but Carnegie units will be done based on mastery of content, but they will get at least 240 minutes of instruction every day.
Yes.
So tardies, as far as tardies, we just expect that as we prioritize safety with temperature checks, that the first couple of days are going to be slow because we know that safety is a priority. We have to make sure that everybody has a temperature check. If a child has a fever, they have to be quarantined in the room and then they have to be picked up by their parent. We have a no contact policy, so the parent has to wait until they call us to pick up the child. So we just need to expect the first couple of days to be slower because we just have to make sure that we're using all the safety mitigation strategies we put in place to keep our children and employees safe.
All right, and my final two questions. One deals with virtual learning. I know we as a district have, really put an emphasis on connectivity and other things with hotspots and all the things that we're continuing to work forward with. And there's the ongoing dialogue. I think we're still waiting, or maybe they've already sent to us now that we can move forward regarding the computers, one-to-one computers for all the different students. But the virtual learning option has a multiple level way of being virtually learning. Is that correct? And it's not just that you have to be on your computer and connected in to do it. I mean, there's other ways that someone can participate in virtual learning if they don't have the machine or the connectivity to do that. If they're doing the hybrid schedule, they're still gonna have virtual learning days. So
yeah, that's correct. And we learned a lot from March to May. Trustee Spears, one thing that we learned is that those kids with devices and connectivity received a different education than those that picked up packets. And so we've really worked hard to make sure that we're not giving packets out. And when we say virtually, we pray that with the help of MDE and our local legislators, we'll receive devices in September and October. So when we say virtual, it means virtual. The paper and the packet situation, we don't feel is ideal for education. Towards the end, we didn't have parents picking up packets or returning them. And so we know the pitfalls of kids not having devices and connectivity. It's the reason why one of our contingencies is to have a safe site for all of our students that are virtual, which means they can make an appointment to come to a sanitized, computer lab with connectivity to work on their iReady, which is mandated 90 minutes a week, both for virtual for all students. And so we had to put in contingencies for that because we don't want to make the same mistakes that we made from March to May. We had about 20% of our population that we did not have any contact with between March and May. And we do not want to make that same mistake this year. We want to make sure we stay connected to our students and we value and prioritize education by giving them the education that they deserve.
okay.
That sounds great.
It does.
It does.
My final question is, when we get into the school year and we start, maybe towards September, if we see not just here locally, statewide numbers keep going up, and then there's some parents that may have opted for the hybrid schedule, and I know that there's still some virtual learning, but then they feel more comfortable, like, look, I know I selected this at the beginning, but I would feel much more comfortable continuing doing the virtual platform. Is the plan adaptable or flexible enough to allow that transition for parents who are trying to get their child in school, keep their child in school, but may feel like that they need to reevaluate that decision so that they can continue on and not necessarily feel like that their students really being exposed to more than they're comfortable with?
Well, the discourse that we've received is because the flexibility we've given. And so we had registration for virtual for a week and then we left it open. And so we're kind of behind on the schedules because we really want to meet the needs of our parents. With that being said, we did make one to get an early commitment because of scheduling. There's a lot of work that goes into a hybrid and virtual schedule as far as teacher and student ratio, our numbers in our school. So 5 to 10 parents wanting a virtual schedule can change the whole dynamics of if it's in a particular grade level, that could have a lot of implications. And so if you signed up virtually and hybrid, we did require the parent to make a commitment for the first 9 weeks. If they come in new, they'll have a choice like every other parent, but switching back and forth is very problematic from an instructional standpoint and from a personnel standpoint. We want to be able to provide our parents as much flexibility as possible, but it is the reason that we've had so much discourse, because we have been very, very open to allowing parents to register up until the last minute. And it's very difficult to plan and organize student and teachers for classroom instruction if we continue to allow that. So I would say we were flexible in their selection process of whether they wanted virtual or hybrid, but we did get a long-term commitment of both 9 weeks, first and second semester, for choosing a schedule. However, new parents to the district will be able to select that schedule, and we'll be able to accommodate those as they come in. Right now, our enrollment is about 3,000 students. We hope that those numbers will continue to continue. We have a lot of new students that have come into the district as we create this new normal. I just want to make you, the Board of Trustees, aware that we really created a new way of doing school in less than 5 months. And that's really what we've done. We've really changed the dynamic of how students learn. Our teachers have been trained, and it's been a very, very complex process, and it's not as easy as it looks.
Right. And
I have one question. Can I kick in here real quick?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cox.
Okay, this is Yvonne Cox. Let's go back when you said computer labs, when you were answering that question about the labs. All right, with children that are doing the hybrid A and B, let's say if they do not have the devices at home for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if they do A and they don't have the proper devices at home for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they'll be able to connect with a computer lab where everything is set up to assist them, right?
That's correct. They're called safe sites, and they would have to call and make an appointment.
Safe sites.
They would have to say, call their principal and say, I would like to come to the safe site on this day, and they're open at specific times. They're sanitized. All the computer labs are 6 feet apart, and they'll be allowed to come in and do their iReady or their assignments during that time.
Okay. Safe sites will be set up. And about how many safe sites do we have?
We have one at every school, ma'am.
Thank you.
And to get to the safe site, they would have to have someone bring them, or we're going to be running buses to pick them up and drop them off?
Right now, right now, they would have to secure a ride, but we have put funds in if we have to do bus routes into our CARES Act money. So we will have a contingency of paying the district funds to go get students if routes are necessary, if the numbers get to where we need buses. So yes, we do have a contingency for that.
Okay.
So we have
I know I said my last question, but I have one more after listening to that. So if you have students that are doing distant learning, and it's evident that, for one reason or another, they're just not able to get a ride to even a local site that might only be, a half-mile away because there's schools all over the area. Then how do we address that issue? And also, to kind of piggyback on that, if you have a student who lives, let's just say, out in East Columbus, closer to Fairview, but they're going to Cook, are they allowed to use the site there at Fairview that's closer and access that, or are they going to have to find a way to get to Cook?
Okay. All the virtual students were required to have devices. We learned that from the spring. So if you signed up for virtual, there are virtual requirements. And so
No, I'm talking about the hybrid platform.
okay, the hybrid platform, there's 3 ways that you can receive your minutes of instruction. And so we are very flexible on the virtual days for the hybrid schedule. But if they need a selected site, they can go to the nearest location. That's the reason why we have them at every site.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, is that it is something where if that student that may just be, a bike ride away, we'll say from Fairview, even though they're scheduled and they're going to Cook on their their days, their Monday, Tuesday days, that if they need to go to the lab, they're not going to have to get a ride to go all the way over to Cook to go to that particular designated area, that there will be some flexibility for the students to be able to just go to the school that's just down the street from them.
And yeah, that's correct, especially at the elementary because we have school choice. We had to have that kind of flexibility.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. And all they have to do is call in, the parent.
Yeah, they have to call in and make an appointment. We want to make sure that the site stays sanitized. They'll be able to sign in. It'll be supervised. And right now, we're not letting parents in. It's no contact. And so they would have to drop them off, allow them in through the front door, go through the check, get a temperature check, come in, do their studies, and then the parent would have to take them out. As things get better, we may be able to change our contingency, but right now, safety is our priority, and we just don't want people in the building among the students and employees.
And is the threshold for a complete shutdown again, would it be dictated by the governor's office, or would it be that, okay, if you have 40% of your population that's tested positive for COVID, we're going to make you go fully virtual?
We have a decision matrix that we use. We know the numbers that we need when we have a high exposure case, if there's more than 3 people that have tested positive in a particular area. So we have a decision matrix that was sent to us from Dr. Dobbs that we'll use for those exposure. And I just want to be perfectly honest, we've been managing positive cases since March. Without any students here, just among our employees. And we follow CDC guidelines. We have to follow HIPAA regulations. We really have to follow a lot of medical procedures to make sure that we're doing things diligently and right and well. We get everybody, every time they test positive, everybody they've been exposed to. The biggest mitigating strategy that we have is that we have a mandated mask requirement for all employees and students. It decreases the chances of you contracting COVID by 90%. There's a lot of districts that don't have that, and we just believed in that very early on. We followed the rules of engagement, took in consideration everything Dr. Tate, Crystal Tate, who's out of Tupelo, and Dr. Dobbs has given us as far as information, keeping our employees and students safe.
Okay. Board, is there any other questions regarding the reopening of school?
I have I'll wait. Go on.
I just wanted to ask, is there any kind of media information that will be sent out between, say, the next couple of days to parents, letting them know how the safety or the process of the safety from the time the child arrives at school, what it looks like, so the parents understand that we do have their students as well as the parents in mind, everything that's gone through the process?
Yes, ma'am. And we've contacted several media outlets. They'll be interviewing principals and Dr. Dito today. They'll be going through probably 3 or 4 of our facilities, taking pictures. And we apologize for the lack of transparency, but it was a time that we didn't want everybody in the building. And we were preparing well and getting things taken care of as far as putting more equipment in. And the more people we allow in the building, the more, exposure that we have. So we've really limited that. But that information should be out this evening. It should be a full tour of 2 or 3 of our facilities. I am very open to giving the Board of Trustees a tour with the requirement of face masks and a face shield.
Sounds interesting.
And I'll be, and Dr. Dito and I will be in every building. On tomorrow and Friday, we're going to be in with our teachers every step of the way. And if you would like to do a tour, like I said, as long as you wear a mask and a face shield, you're welcome to tour at any time.
Okay. Any other board members? I know I've been talking a lot, but let me just say this, and I do appreciate all your hard work, Dr. Labat, and we all have a moral obligation, to speak for our students, our parents. Our children are depending on us, and I look at it that it was the only true concerns that I have, and I'm listening to you, and I know that you are very into you are prepared, and I'm looking at the concern of every avenue. I know you can't have everything perfect, and the way that the virus COVID is going, you can't say who may catch it, but if every avenue is ready, and that I'm saying, your principals, are your principals as prepared as you are to be able to explain and have that same type of zeal and excitement about all the different things that you've been working towards since March or maybe February, preparing for this? Because once the students come in, the education of our kids is in that principal's hand and the staff, the employees, all of that, because you can't be in every place at all different times. So I'm truly concerned about the principals and the teachers being fully prepared. Are they ready for Thursday?
And like I said, I contacted. We met after the press conference yesterday. I asked for any question. We've talked about things. We prepared since March. They have the proper PPE equipment, and I feel that we are prepared. But I will say this: if we feel that we can have all the PPE in the world, masks, face shields, and feel that we're not going to have an outbreak, then we're not telling the truth, because it's going to happen. It's almost like preparing for something and having an unknown enemy and not knowing where it's going to come or how it got to you, but you have to prepare for it. So nothing that we're going to do is going to be perfect. Of course, there's anxieties. I have anxieties. It's not a perfect situation, but I feel that they know that from a safety standpoint that we're prepared. Are there anxieties? I mean, there's anxiety in even being around people. When we got the art supplies last week, I hadn't been around 10 or 15 people in a long time. That was a little, that was anxiety for me. And so I think that some of the things that they've expressed to me are normal. I think we're all feeling some of the same things as we prepare. But I know that we know that we have a moral obligation to serve our students. We stay in constant communication. I'll meet with them again today, just to ask them if they have any questions. I asked my team right before this meeting started, do you have any reservations about us starting? Wanted to get their feedback from our directors. They all said no, they're ready to go. JC's did joke and say we can wait till November till they all have devices, but we know we can't do that. But he was the only one that had something funny to say, but everybody else was, ready to go. Ms. Johnson, I can't tell you enough about the employees that we have here and how hard they've worked, especially the district team and the principals have worked diligently to prepare. As you know, in the summer, from March to May, we were one of the only districts that stayed open, that continued to feed our community, and was one of the only districts in the state that was still working when everybody else shut down and we're at home. So it goes to say that when you don't go home and you continue working, that good things happen. And so they have been stretched thin, and we all have. But I think the greater good is that they kept working for students. And I think our principals are willing to do what's in the best interest of students. It's something that we just don't say, but it's something that we believe. And it's taken a lot of hard work. So yeah, I do feel our principals are prepared and supportive and are ready to go. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear.
All right. Board, is there any other questions regarding the reopening or any of the plans outlined for the reopening?
Yes, I do have one question. This is Frederick Sparks. And then that question is pertaining to the availability of substitute teachers in the event you have a teacher that, that's exposed or for whatever reason aren't able to come in.
Okay. I did speak to with Mr. Henfield about that about 6 to 8 weeks ago. We will try to use subs as infrequently as possible. We don't feel like it's a good idea to bring people from an outside environment into the school. So we'll try to mitigate with using teachers within the building before we go outside. It's very imperative we keep the environment sterile, and it's just better for us to keep our employee. They know the rules, they know the regulations. We're not bringing anybody from outside, and so we're going to try to use substitute as infrequently as possible. We're going to try to use personnel within the building.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks, for that question.
And
All
Mr. Sparks, Mr. Spears, I'm sorry. I just want to ask any of my team members if they wanted to say anything. I'm sure they don't want me to put them on the spot, but if any of them have anything to say to address the board, please feel free to do so.
I have a question for Dr. Dito. Are we up to snuff?
Is he on here? He may be in buildings. Let me take
Okay.
up for him first. Yeah, he's been out with bus drivers, and he went to all the buildings. You can ask Mr. Lawton that; he'll understand that joke.
Okay.
And I want to commend Dr. Dito for all the work. Okay, I'm sorry, Lawton. Go ahead.
I'd have to say that we are definitely up to snuff. Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions? All right. So we'll move to our next item. And this was an item that we had for consideration when we had our retreat back on July the 25th. And there were some questions regarding this particular item that I think needed to be addressed. One being is that the language of MOA had some ambiguous terminology regarding the student or resident of the student that I think we had reached out for clarification on. So, so in that logic, where it reads regarding the student residents. Now, these will be students who are going to be 12th grade, 11th grade, and 10th grade. There will be no 9th graders in the program, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so are those students of residence, even though they may be living in the CMSD district, are they counted as our resident students? So we get all of the test scores and everything, or are they going to be classified as now transferred students to the county?
They'll be in accordance to our previous agreement. When they left us from 9th grade, once they transferred in, they automatically became students of Lowndes County.
Okay. So even though the board did not approve those students to be students of Lowndes County, they're still students of Lowndes County?
As logistically unsound that is, yes, according to our previous agreement.
Okay, so the district in that particular idea, I mean, so if they're not students of the CMSD, they're students of Lowndes County, then why would we need to approve? Because we're not going to get MAP dollars for them anyway. Now,
I think the purpose of the agreement we talked about as we negotiated getting out of the contract for
Unknown
GTEC,
participant is now
that,
exiting.
we would provide transportation for those students for the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. But I will tell you that I have not received one correspondence about GTEC. And I've talked to several of my colleagues. We don't know when they're starting. We don't know we should pick up. We hadn't received rosters. We hadn't received any information regarding students from GTEC. So yes.
so if we're going to be providing transportation for county students, are we going to be billing the county for those transportation costs?
No, as initially, as we mitigated and discussed this conversation in March, we said we would provide transportation for those students. We discussed that.
Oh, boy. So, question, Yvonne Cox. Right now, we have how many students that are 10th, 11th? What is it, 9 to 12?
I recall 33. But I will
30.
say this, we have not received any communication from GTech. I don't know when they're starting school. I don't have any rosters. I don't have any information. And I reached out to Lowndes County and they haven't received any information either.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is that, you know, I go back to is that this is a new MOA. Our old MOA that we were just talking about of transfer and all that ended June 30th. So this would be a new contract. And so if we're going to be, and that the agreement in theory, I think if we're going to be responsible for cost in the, you know, the financial, you know, calculations that we're working with, if we're going to be responsible for cost of,
Okay.
okay, I'm sorry. No, I was just looking. My computer came up a message, but that we need to at least be able to break even on our transportation costs if we're going to be busing students from A to B and B to A on that particular area. If indeed they are county students, unless they want to just come send a bus by to pick up those students and take them themselves from a designated area at the high school or wherever.
And Mr. Spears, I will reach out to them. I think it may be a moot situation as far as transportation because they may be virtual. I will reach out to Mr. Sam and see what's if they will actually go in person. But like I said, I hadn't received any information. But if there's any changes in agreement that you all would like to send back, if y'all could send them to the board attorney, we can just send them back to MDE and to Mr. Allison.
So,
I have a question.
yes,
Sure.
sir.
Maybe I was napping and just missed it. Jason, you and I went down several times to Jackson to MDE, and I thought the grades were supposed to be transferred from
Right.
Lowndes County to the originating school district.
I did too.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that as well.
I remember that.
So what happened to that?
Well, that goes back to more pitfalls of this particular agreement that they're asking us to consider. Because Dr. Black, correct me if I'm wrong, but after the board had gone to Jackson and lobbied it successfully, they did give us credit for students who were attending from our district. They did give those scores back to us, correct?
That's correct. And I considering also that they put an APA, which is a process standard to support that move. So it really does need to be a part of the contract because it is written in what they call policy at MDE that these scores would go back to those particular school districts.
Because I mean, I think that's, you know, another part of, you know, that if we're going to be transporting them and all these other costs that we're going to have to absorb as a district, but then we don't get the MDE funds, nor do we get the scores, we're back to square one.
We're still where we were. And that brings up my question, if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. If this is a new MOA that we are expected to agree on and approve, then it should have new information, exactly what they agreed upon to us. It should be documented in this particular document. But it's like they've just revised it and we're continuing. If it's a new MOA, why are the students, our 33 students that are from Columbus High School, still under Lowndes County?
In our initial agreement, when they left us to go to 8th grade, 9th grade, they became Lowndes County students. So even in our previous agreement, that was the case. So fast forward to our current agreement, the Mississippi Department of Education developed the Mississippi Department of Education the Mississippi Department of Education developed the contract. They sent it to Mr. Allison to support him and sent it to us. So with that being said, the will of the board, we have revisions, I'll gladly send those back with revisions because the APA process is not included. And Mr. Hempfield can note that and get those back to Mr. Allison as far as the agreement, what we would like to add. And we probably could look at one of the previous agreements where the APA was included to be able to add that. Mr. Dunn, I know you're online.
Mr. Dunn?
He came on, we heard him.
David Dunn.
Is now exiting.
Okay.
Dr. Levine, is there any way we can also get the corresponding information to find out when GTEC is opening, the details of what they're doing before we, to go along with the nuts and bolts of this contract?
Yeah, yes, we need that information also. As I talked to Mr. Allison last week, and I said, if my board proceeds in providing transportation, I don't even know anything as far as information, and he hadn't received any information either. He hadn't received any correspondence whatsoever from GTEC.
Well, I think that three things. He said, Mr. Dunn just texted me and said that he got knocked offline, that he's trying to reconnect. So
Okay.
he'll be back on shortly. I think three things that, because I go back to, this is just a blank slate. Like, there's no pre-existing strings attached to this program. I understand that the way the old agreement worked, but that old agreement is no longer in effect. It ended June 30th of this year. And while I agree that we all have kind of come to some type of compromise that we want to see the students in the 12th, 11th, and 10th grade be able to complete that, that step that they're doing there, there still has to be that accountability and there still has to be what's right and responsible for all the districts. And so, I go back to is that it was for the issue was, okay, you can go out, you can recruit and use those slots, and there's no way when a student has a residence, they have to get approval to go to another school district. So if the board hasn't approved those students formally to attend, then I think that in this agreement, that we need to make sure that we're compensated for those transportation costs if we're not getting MAP dollars for those students. They're classified under Lowndes County, but we also need to be making sure that we're getting their grades back. So, I mean, if a Lowndes County student goes to MSMS, they're
David Dunn.
Is now joining.
If a Lowndes County student goes to MSMS or Starkville or any other participating school go to MSMS, those scores go back to that home school. And that was the whole premise of what we did when we discussed it with the State Board of Education before. And so I think that needs to be part of the document. Mr. Dunn, are you on with us now?
Yes.
So we were talking about the GTEC MOA and some of the details. Now, the old GTEC's MOA that we were operating under no longer exists. It termed out June 30th this year. So the new MOA that we're talking about here is all new terms as to how we proceed, correct?
Correct.
So the board can make any suggested changes to this MOA in compliance with the state law and the standards and other things that are part of the platform in this agreement. It's not something that we say, well, in the old agreement, this is the way it works, because this is a totally new contract.
Correct.
Okay. So board, if it's okay with you, I ask that we table this to our Monday meeting so that we can get some of those details together regarding those changes we would like to see put into this particular MOA, and then we can hash those details out at our Monday meeting, and Mr. Dunn or Mr. Hemphill would be able to address those contract before we send any modified MOA or approved MOA back to those entities. Is that okay, you think, Mr. Dunn?
Yes, I think it's fine.
Okay.
All right, board members, do y'all feel okay about that?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Do you want a motion, Jason?
so I just need a motion to table item 5A to our August the 10th, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
So move.
Has been motioned by Ms. Cox, seconded by Mr. Spark. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Cox, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Shank, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. And Ms. Young, how do you vote?
Yes.
It is unanimous. Next we have is item 5B, which is consideration to approve student transfers. Board, I need a motion to approve.
So move.
As motion by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Ms. Cox. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Cox, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Shoemake, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Young, how do you vote?
Yes.
It is unanimous. So next we go to our item to review for August the 10th. Let me get back over to the screen here. August the 10th, right here. All right. All right, is everyone able to see the information here for August the 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I see it.
All right. So we have our standard opening 1, 2, and 3. Then we have our school board minutes for July the 8th and July the 13th. And I know we're still working on the final details for our July the 25th work session minutes. We have our trustee travel report. Mr. Taylor or Ms. Seymour be there to discuss the ongoings there at Hunt for item 2, Dr. Labat?
Yes,
Okay. It is Ms. Seymour, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. All right. Then also we'll have our discussion of the Hunt recovery and review the expenditures and reimbursement payments for project. On this particular item, and it's something we'll talk about tonight at our review meeting, there have been several items that I identified and I communicated to Dr. Labat and Ms. Rogers on our call, our budget hearing, not budget hearing, but our budget review call that were miscoded or coded incorrectly, I should say,
Mhm.
on the docket that I think Ms. Rogers is going to work to bring that information to tonight's meeting to show the total amounts that should have been coded to 3027, but were incorrectly coded to our operating account 1120.
Okay.
Pretty substantial number. But then also on this part is that we just really need to make sure that as a board, we're continuing to be vigilant in identifying those costs as they come across the docket, that we get that summary of what contractors or what payments are being made to different people participating in that particular recovery effort, whether it be engineering firm, architecture, other contractors, so that we can identify those names that are being coded through 3027. Then we go to contract renewals update, and as you can see, there's been a slight change as to how we can identify. I think Ms. Woodard, we're all learning together, and Ms. Woodard had emailed us about, instead of it being in red, now there's an asterisk by those items that don't have the information as we're going through our review, but they will be available as soon as they are available to put out there. So contract renewals update is one of them. Then we have item 5, which is the discussion of school year 2020-2021 budget status, adjustments, revenues, and related topics. I'm leaving this item on just because I know we have our budget hearing this evening at Brandon, but there will probably be ongoing dialogue because we cannot take our budget up at that Monday meeting. We'll have to have a special call meeting to consider because it has to stay out in the public domain for at least 7 days for comment. Then we go to our discussion of bicentennial planning for Franklin, and this particular item will probably change in the language as we go forward because I know we have multiple committees, branding, bicentennial and others. So I think this will be more of a catch-all for all these committees so that everybody will know what each committee is doing and not just be so focused on one area over another, so that we have that fluid communication that all board members know what's going on in all these different committees and everything at one time. So is that okay with everyone to do it that way going forward?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Next, we have our consent agenda. We have policies that have been recommended by MSBA for discussion for changes. Then we have one policy 1.2.1, which is policy JBDE. And Dr. Labat, is this a policy that we are created internally or something that's been passed down by state law or MSBA since it's not marked MSBA?
It is a state law that was mandated that we have to get adopted by the school board by September 1st. We are looking into the details based on our restart and recovery plan to make sure that we put the correct information inside the policy. We just received the sample policy from MSBA last week. I've had my principals to review it and my team. We've started school this week, so it may not make this agenda. I want to make sure that it's done well and correctly. We may have to call a special called board meeting, and we may have to do that. We'll have to do another board meeting after August because we have to get a technology policy adopted by the board in the upcoming weeks. JC, you want to detail that?
Yeah, I can detail that real quick. That's for the one-to-one initiative with MDE giving us all this money. They want to make sure that we have specific policies and plans in place so that we know that we're taking care of the machines that they're giving us or paying for us to have. So that it'll be three things. We've done most of the work already with the restart recovery plan. It's like a sustainability plan, which will detail how the IT team will maintain the devices and keep them healthy. And then there's two other that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know the other two have already more or less been done. I'm just waiting for the template from MDE, which they should give me next Monday, I believe, so that I can fill it according to their template, and it should be pretty easy.
Okay. And the other question is, I know it's related to the policy, but that will be encompassing not just the new machines that we're purchasing through CARES Act fund, but will this also regulate to the
Unknown participant is now exiting.
the ongoing property the ongoing systems that we have when a ninth grader comes, when a student comes to ninth grade, they get issued a machine all through high school. So this will be universal. It won't just be segmented for this new purchase for those other machines, correct?
Yeah, and as I said, most of these policies are already in place. But yes, there'd be no reason not to wrap in everything that we already have.
Okay. And we also know, Dr. Labat, not to get off too far, but since we're talking about that particular policy, how many machines we're looking at to purchase. Because, I know that we already have that commitment for the high school that's ongoing and already in place, so we don't need to be purchasing machines for the high schoolers. But we do still have, and then I don't know what you're doing pre-K through, say, second grade, but are you just purchasing for third grade through eighth grade? And what's that count?
I'll let JC take this question, but we will be one-to-one once we order all the devices, JC.
Yeah, this will be pre-K. This will be pre-K through 8. We're ordering devices through them, so I can't tell you what type of devices we're going to get because they're voting on that today, I believe. They received those bids earlier this week, and they're voting on what type of devices we'll get then. It's I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's something like 2,835, I believe, is the number of devices, give or take, 10. But that should cover pre-K through 8.
Okay. I guess you said they haven't decided on which one they're accepting, so they don't know the cost per unit yet. So.
They have an estimated cost per unit, something like $500 or $600 for a Windows laptop. That's what we've told them we would like because we're already a Windows shop here. I just can't tell you if it's going to be a Dell or if it's going to be a Lenovo, an Asus, an Acer. I just can't tell you what type of laptop. It's going to be pretty minimal. It's going to have like 4 gigs of RAM. It's not going to be a super beefy machine, but that estimated price also includes mobile device management, civic compliance, and stuff like that. It wraps in multiple other elements of taking care of a machine.
All right. So board, that is, and not the policy that we see there as virtual attendance, but there'll be another policy in addition to the one we see on screen that we would have to consider. Either it will be available for Monday, or it might be at our whenever we call our when we're going to have our meeting to take up the budget itself and the request.
Yes, and I also wanted to let the board know that we went with the MDE process because it was a way that we could get the devices in our student hands more quickly. We knew that if we went through the reverse bid process, so follow that process is following their process, it help us on the fiscal side because they will release the money, and doing it with the state department, the Mississippi Department of Education, we'll get the devices in the hands of the students more quickly than if we did on our own.
Okay. Next, under the consent agenda item, you'll see is the approved My Book Lowndes County donation to all CMSD first grade students. Then we have our dates to remember. We have our academic dates, which is Labor Day on September the 7th, and then progress reports will be issued September the 10th. Board meetings will have our September the 2nd, 2020 review, which will be through Microsoft Teams on this platform, and then we'll have our regular meeting September the 8th at 6 p.m. at Brandon. And then we have open forum. We have Office of Business Management, consideration of approved financials, and we don't have any of the financials yet, but one of the key things I'm hopeful for is, will we have those for tonight, because obviously it would be helpful in our discussion for the budget that those financials be available.
Ms. Rogers.
I emailed them to Ms. Woodard just before our meeting started for the review meeting.
Okay, all right, so those will hopefully be uploaded. So board, you'll be able to check, and we can use those this evening as we're talking through our budget hearing this evening with some of the different financial reports that we'll have to work with kind of more exact balances in discussion. Financials, then we go down and we have fixed asset disposals. We have reverse fixed asset disposals. We have original bus shop contents. Now, are these the contents that were at the other former location with the former contractor?
Ms. Rogers?
No, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, some of these items did go to the former location, but the majority of these items were actually left in that old transportation building next to Lee building, the Lee Middle School. So when those were sold, we didn't take into consideration the old bus shop that was right next to it and the contents that were listed there.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Dunn, are you still on the call with us? Mr. Dunn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Quick question regarding this item, because obviously when we went through and conveyed the title to the CRD, Columbus Recreation Authority, not Recreation, but Redevelopment Authority, it was, I think we did like a massive sweep of a fixed asset disposal. I mean, everything from 1986 televisions to VCRs and anything else. When we did all of that and we conveyed the title over to them, and then of course then they sold it to the buyer, did we lose rights to that other property that may have still been housed there?
What other property, again?
Let's talk about the original bus shop that's over on the Lee property that we sold. It's over in that corner, right down, the hill from Highway 82. You can kind of see it as you're passing down the bypass, that metal building that's out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, behind the gym.
You conveyed everything that was on that property to them.
That's what I thought. So how can we take up, approval of disposing this bus shop contents when we conveyed everything at that time?
The problem is that it wasn't taken off of our fixed asset list in our system. And by law, I cannot take that off without board approval.
So you're doing something basically you're doing something now that you actually are confirming something now that you did back at that time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just make sure that, there's not going to be some legal issue that pops up when, we do this and someone were to come back and say, well, no, you did this on this date when you conveyed us the title, like even if we had the ability to do it. So if this is just more mechanical on our books and not that we're going to go out there with truckloads of stuff hauling it out of that warehouse, it's not on our property. That's what I was asking.
No.
Right.
No, sir.
Yeah. No.
Just to
You
clarify.
just kind of crossing T's and dotting I's, basically.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
When I read over the list, this is Joe. I was sort of confused. These things are not actually there, are they?
Probably not at this point. It's not our property, so we couldn't go out there and look. But these items are so old, I'm not surprised that they were left there and not taken to the new bus shop when Echo Ride took over.
Okay.
Okay. So Mr. Dunn, under your legal, analysis of this, by us considering and approving this item Monday night, if that's what the board chooses to do, there's no other issue other than just we're being retroactive to kind of clean up our books. It's not something more than that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's good enough for me. So, all right. So next we have, is there any other questions on that item, board? Okay. All right. So next we have 10, which is consideration discussion to approve disposal list out of service buses sold as surplus. If we could get a little more clarification, I know we had the original list and then we had a substitute and now we have this. So does this kind of bring to a close that transaction?
What happened is that one of the asset numbers was reported to you incorrectly. And we just want to make sure that we bring this back to your attention so you can recognize the correct asset number that should have been approved.
Okay.
We can't do the substitute. We know that a mistake was made, and we can't do the substitute ourselves without board recognition.
Oh, sure. Okay. So this is the, final list of the buses with all the correct information here that will supersede the previous approval.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, Mr. Dunn, can we just do that, or do we have to rescind the initial approval and then approve this?
Say that again.
Okay. So the reason we have this bus transaction list for surplus buses is because one of the say serial numbers or identifying numbers were incorrect on what the board approved. So my question is, do we have to rescind the previous action or and then approve this, or can we just approve this and it basically supersede the previous action?
Hold on, Mr. Spears. I just want to make one point is before you approve for us to advertise to accept bids for the items, and this is now we've accepted those and we're actually getting them off of our books. But the list is one asset number is different from the last.
Was that just a typographical error, just a clerical error, the wrong number got put in?
It was.
then you can just, someone can, move and there be an action by the board to correct the minutes to reflect the right number. And then
Oh.
what
That's it.
happens is you actually go back and change those minutes to reflect the right number.
Okay, so we just need, instead of this new report to be approved, we need to have it identified as to the meeting, and of course get the minutes for that meeting, make the adjustment to the approval of the minutes for that meeting in the upcoming meeting. If I didn't say meeting 25 times. So that's what you're saying would be the more correct way of doing it. It's just going back to that original meeting that they were approved, and then bringing the corrected minutes with this corrected information for consideration to approve.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So that, and then actually the minutes that are in the book will be taken out and changed to reflect the correct number once that resolution is adopted at a meeting.
So Ms. Woodard, would you pull that information of those minutes for that particular transaction together so that that could be what we consider in this item here for Monday's meeting?
Yes, sir. I have to first find out which meeting that was from Ms. Tackett. She should have that information.
Okay. And just send it to us, to Chris and I, and then, we will prepare a resolution so that it's clear how you do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you on that. And so under item 10, it'll just show the minutes and the resolution that we just discussed instead of this particular new list of buses. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Ms. Rogers or somebody just email us, Chris and I, the problem that the minutes of such and such a date had an erroneous number for a certain item. The correct number was so and so, and so we need to correct that in the minutes, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So next we have our claims docket, federal programs and IDA monthly financial review. Then we go down to Office of Superintendent. We have some operations, superintendent travel, an update, superintendent updates, special education update. Dr. Bott will have a discussion about that. Then we have our superintendent recommendations, discussion to approve contract work, addendums to contract, approve staff personnel items, and discussion to approve, or consideration to approve dual credit articulation agreement between the CMSD and MUW. Then we have our agreement between the CMSD and East Mississippi Center for Education Development. 5 is discussion consideration of contract between the CMSD and MSU for Columbus High School graduation 2021. And consideration, discussion to approve group link renewal. We have discussion consideration to approve between CMSD and Baptist Hospital. Then we have our goal update safety report. We have closed determination for executive session items, and return to regular session and to adjourn. So does anyone have any question regarding any of the items that we talked about that will be on Monday's review meeting?
Mr. Spears, I just want to make sure that I get the opportunity before you close the meeting to go back to the GTEC agreement and discuss it. I know that's not part of it right now, but just so you'll know, I would like for us to look again at that agreement for a second before you close.
Sure. All right. So before we go back to today's agenda, board, do y'all have any questions regarding Monday night's agenda? Okay. All right. So let's close that off and go back over here and pull up today's agenda, which is right here. All right, and so we have the GTEX MOA.
Tell me when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dunn.
Page 1.
Okay.
2 paragraphs. We're going to look at 2 paragraphs. One of them is 4, and it's the third sentence of 4, but I'm going to read the whole, first 3 sentences together.
Okay.
Students at ECHS shall take all high school assessments required by state policies. All assessments, including those required by state policies, shall be administered at the ECHS. Now, here's what I want you to focus on. Accountability results, including subject area test scores, earned and graduation rate, shall be included in the performance results for the student's high school of residence.
I read that.
No, I read that, but there
I read that.
but that goes back to the ambiguous language, in the sense is that they're saying that, well, they're Lowndes County students after the 9th grade, which would be 10th, 11th, and 12th that we're talking about here. So it seems like that, okay, well, the student's high school of residence is going to be classified as Lowndes County and not Columbus. So I think that we should be more direct and just put in there for safekeeping, specifically, that they'll be reported, or they'll graduation, the performance results for the students back to, or something like that language, Columbus Municipal School District.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I have a question for Mr. Don.
And what I'm saying, whatever they work out with Starkville and West Point and Knoxville or others is, I don't want to say, it's just that it's not something that we're not approving or trying to get their agreement. They can work out their own details of their own agreement, but in our agreement, I think it would only be fair to say specifically the Columbus Municipal School District.
I have a question for Mr. Don. Mr. Don.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is Yvonne Cox. Every year when we approve the MOA, when the MOAs are approved annually, I hope I'm not on mute, am I?
No, ma'am, you're good.
Okay.
No.
Okay. When the MOAs are approved every year at this time, all MOAs, all updates to them are done at that time. If the MOA from the very beginning said that when the children, our students, go to GTEC, they become Lowndes County students in the 9th grade. All right, that was the original one. Since then, there have been numerous changes to the MOAs for GTEC. And that, Mr. Dunn, right now, with this new agreement, wouldn't that specify that these students are now residents, like Mr. Spears is saying, of the Columbus Municipal School District? And everything with them comes back to Columbus Municipal School District, because it's a new MOA. So why are we keeping that little part in there?
Well, I think the intent, when the 2 places in the contract that address this is 4, which I just read, and 6. Yeah. Under this agreement, all students in the program beginning 2020 shall be considered students in the district of residence. Residence is a legal term, and it means where they live. It does not mean where they go to school.
Well,
but to be abundantly clear,
yes,
in both situations, we will modify it to put after district of residence, open parenthesis, CMSD.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So simple.
Yeah.
What,
Mhm.
that's the intent. Everybody knows that's the intent. So this won't surprise anybody.
And I'll go on record to say that their attorney probably drafted it for the attorney for MDE drafted it for the schools and followed all the APA. So an attorney probably developed the contract. I mean, the MOU.
Well, I mean,
Right.
this is a cookie cutter contract, so all we need to do is just put in the name of our school.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
That's it.
Right. So we'll do that. We'll do it. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. And I was looking to see, I was looking to see where in here it says, again, I apologize, but transportation.
Mr. Spears, while you're looking, may I speak?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I may be wrong, but it was my recollection when y'all worked this out. Of course, everybody got when it looked like it was ending, the parents that had students in the program and the students were very upset and became very vocal about, at least honoring those that are in the program. My recollection was that the Columbus School District agreed to bus those students through the end of, and bear that cost through the end of the program.
And Mr. Dunn, we said that verbally during that time of March and April that we would give that commitment in one of our meetings. We did agree to that.
It may be a moot point, just like Dr. Labat said, because it's probably going to be done all online anyway. But I think that was what you decided to do.
Well, what I see, under what I have on the screen, transportation and different things here, requirement CMSD to participate, responsibility of the CMSD, paid available public or private sources, including local school district, CMSD, and I don't quite understand this line right here.
Where are you reading from?
On page number 16, it states transportation cost, second sentence, transportation costs may be paid from any available public or private sources. So what would the private sources be?
Well, that came from MDE, so they some school district somewhere must have some sort of private source for helping with transportation. We don't have any, I don't believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Agrees to arrange morning and afternoon transportation. Got it.
Well, and the other side of it too is that just like we focus on our busing, students to and from and different things in our own operations, as far as regulations of, temperature check and questionnaire and all these other things, is there going to need to be some type of language in there that says that they have to comply with these saying, or letting us know, hey, I know you bus student 1 over here and they had a high fever and so they had to be sent home, or that there's going to be some type of communication that lets us know, hey, student 1 over here has now tested positive, even though they're a student at GTEX, that we're still aware of that because they may have, been in contact with a driver or something else.
We can work out that communication with Ms. Salvi and Mr. Allison. We need to get some more information from them about start dates and other information. Anyway,
Okay.
so we'll work through that situation with Dr. Dito.
Well, I was just saying, I think that needs to be part of the agreement too. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Don? Just so that there isn't like this, we thought it was this, but it was that. Like it just clearly outlines and says what the CMSD's process is, and that we would want that same compliance with us participating.
My honest opinion is that you don't want to start trying to COVID-19 this contract at
I
this
agree.
point.
I agree.
The parties are going to do the right thing. The people involved are going to do the right thing, and the superintendents can deal with this and do the right thing. I'm absolutely sure Dr. Labat is going to make sure that they're complying.
And to the trustees, it's just the way they get on the bus is a procedure. And so to get on any CMSD bus, you know, we generally temperature check at the school building and not on the bus. But in this particular situation, if they get on the bus going to another facility, we would mitigate them having a temperature check before they arrive. You know, but I'll work out those logistics with Dr. Dito and communicate with the director and Mr. Allison about the next steps for the GTEC, transporting the GTEC students. And I can report that information back once it's received to give you all a little bit more detail.
Okay. Mr. Dunn, is there any other things, details about GTEC MOA?
No, sir.
Okay. Board, is there any questions or suggestions from you regarding this particular item?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So we'll talk more about it at our Monday meeting, and I'll ask Ms. Woodard if she will add that under our August 10th meeting agenda item. So our next item on today's agenda is to adjourn. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Ms. Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
Y'all want to stay on here?
Was that Ms. Young I heard, or Dr. Shoemake?
Yeah, it was a tie. Ms.
All right.
Young.
All right, Ms. Young got second there. So, any discussion? Okay, being none, Ms. Cox, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Shoemake, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. And Ms. Young, how do you vote?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much for participating. I'll see y'all this evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Goodbye.